Good evening, everyone. I hope you are doing good. So, today I'm going to talk about a specific topic, an important subject, an interesting subject, especially for the second and third year students. For the master students, I'm not so sure if it is included in your program, but if it is the case, that's more like it. So before I start to talk about the Reformation in England, you need to know that there was also Reformation in Europe. In example, in France, in France and Germany. In France, we had Jean Calvin, and Germany we had Martin Luther. Martin Luther, not the one in America. Martin Luther was a German person who has accused the authority, the religious authority, of exploiting ordinary people. But that is another detail that we might discuss another time. Good. Now I'm going to talk about the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages or the Renaissance. So when I say the Middle Ages, they were also called the Dark Ages. Something dark, it means something negative, something bad. Well, it was bad because the church or the religion or Christianity was very dominated the whole of Europe. Why? Because people at that time were very religious. They were afraid of God. They were afraid of Judgment Day, hell, etc. So the consequences of this are these. When we have crusades, which almost everyone know, I think. Well, there were wars waged in the Middle East over the Holy Land between the Christians and the Muslims. Who says war says plague. A plague is a disease, right? A dangerous disease like the Black Death, la peste noire. And also we have the 100 Years' War. The 100 Years' War was fought between the British and the French, which lasted for a century. There's another chapter about the 100 Years' War. If you guys need more information about it, just comment and I'll see what I can do. And we also have the Great Famine. The Great Famine, which lasted 3 years. Also one of the consequences of the wars. People die. No farmers anymore, no food, and you starve to death. When you say famine, it means hunger. The word very hungry, we say starving. Good. Now that I have talked about this, just one more information for you guys. It's about the churchmen. Just to show you how much religion was powerful at that time, the churchmen used to tell the ordinary people that God has created them in order to prepare their death. Therefore, they used to work for the churchmen in the farms, and of course they were exploited. Now we are going to talk about the Renaissance. The Renaissance, it means the rebirth. It is a French word. But most of people do not know the rebirth of what. When you say the rebirth, you need something after the word rebirth. So the rebirth of the ancient civilizations. Why, you may ask? The ancient civilizations were studied in the Renaissance, especially in a period between the 6th and the 8th, if I'm not mistaken, the 8th century, because at that time, for example, the Greek civilization or the Roman civilization flourished. Therefore, the people of Renaissance wanted to do the same thing in order not to sink in dark ages again. We had also the birth of new languages. In the Middle Ages, Latin was dominant. Latin was the language of religion, language of the Bible, language of the authority. Good. There were also vernacular languages in the Middle Ages, for example, French, English, Spanish, or even Italian. They were not official. Vernacular means non-official language. It was not acknowledged by the authority. Now, in the Renaissance, the authority, people acknowledged these languages. For now, French is official, or even English. But well, that happened in the Renaissance, because before they were not official. With that being said, I need to move to the Reformation in England. This is like an introduction which is important to understand. You might need it in literature or something else. Now we have Henry VIII. Henry VIII is one of the most famous kings that have ever ruled England. He brought the Reformation to England. It was something revolutionary. Well, Henry was married to Catherine of Aragon. Catherine of Aragon is the daughter of an important or a powerful noble in Spain, I guess. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's Spain. Well, Henry at that time needed a boy from her as a son, but she couldn't give him boys. She only had daughters. Henry needed a boy in order to take his place after his death. That was the way of thinking of kings before. So Catherine couldn't give him a male heir to the throne, as you can see here. He wanted to divorce her or to annul the marriage. But when a king wanted to do such thing, he needed the approval. The approval means the agreement. The approval or the agreement of the Pope. Well, the Pope said no. It was not for religious reasons. It was because the Pope was a good friend of Catherine's father. A few years later, the Archbishop of England died. Right? The Archbishop of England died. An archbishop, guys, is one of the most powerful persons in the church. You have the Pope, then you have the Archbishop, then you have the bishops, the priests, the monks, etc. The Archbishop of England died, as I said. Henry was very intelligent. He convinced the Parliament. The Parliament, guys, normally you have studied about it. Especially for first-year students, you are going to deal with it at the end of the year, related to British civilization, of course. So the Parliament passed what we call the Act of Supremacy. This is important, guys. The Act of Supremacy, which was passed, I think, in 1547, if I'm not mistaken, or 34. I cannot remember. I'll try to search about it. And I'll write it in the description. So it doesn't matter. They passed the Act of Supremacy. The Act of Supremacy consisted in making Henry VIII the head of the church and the king at the same time. So he became the supreme religious power and political. What did he do? He stopped any kind of relationship with Rome. It means Henry made his own religion. He was not obeying Rome. He was not obeying the Pope. So Henry gave the right to himself to divorce Catherine of Aragon. Right? Catherine of Aragon was divorced. Then he married another woman. Her name, if I'm not mistaken, Anne Boleyn. I think it is written like this. Anne Boleyn, I think like this. Search for this name if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, Anne Boleyn couldn't give him a boy either. What did he do? He had her head cut off. He cut her head. In other words, he had her executed. He killed her. So in a simple way. Then, of course, he married another woman. Her name is Jane Seymour. Jane Seymour, right? So Jane Seymour could give him a boy. His name is Edward. Edward, right? But at the end, Henry VIII died and Edward took the throne. When he took the throne, he was only 9 years old and he was very weak, fragile. His health was not very good. He ruled only for 6 years, right? when Edward, he was under the name of Edward, the sixth, like this. Alright, Edward died, and Mary of Tudor, her name is written like this, Mary of Tudor, right? Mary of Tudor was the daughter of Catherine, right? She took the throne, and Catherine was a Catholic, and Henry made the Anglican Church. The Anglican Church. So Henry was a Protestant, right? Good. So Mary was a Catholic, and she persecuted the Protestants. The legend says that she burnt la brûlée 300 Protestants. People feared her. The Protestants feared Mary. Mary died. Then Elizabeth took the throne. She took the throne under the name of Elizabeth I. Elizabeth was the daughter of Anne Boleyn, right? This one. Elizabeth I took the throne, and she was fair, right? There was justice at that time with Elizabeth. Elizabeth decided to let the Catholics and the Protestants live together, but at one condition: there will be no extreme Protestantism or Catholicism. And this is about it for the Reformation in England. So guys, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I hope also that you have understood something. Know that I have recorded this for like 4 times in a row because I didn't have enough space in my SD card. So if you have any kind of questions, please ask in the comments below. I'll try to answer. I'll try to make it short and quick and simple. If you need more details, feel free to message me. And thank you, and I'll see you in another lesson.